Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Today we're having a look at the new mission board and some of the new points of interest down on the planets. Now the points of interest are the same, but the way we can arrive at them has changed quite substantially and in fact makes the game that much more enjoyable. So I've picked up a couple of missions there, and also there, just as a curiosity, you can see that from anywhere, any station, you can also pick up one of the community goals as well. So we've had this mission before. This one is to go out and collect some occupied crow pods, but here is the difference. As soon as you jump into the system, do an advanced discovery scan there and you get an update on your mission. Now this isn't a message there, but it rather is an update to your system map. And this will add a location onto one of the planetary bodies where you're going to be able to find these specific crow pods, occupied crow pods that you need to complete this mission. And there you can see there's the mission marker there on that planet. And as you approach the planet, you'll see there's now a new marker type there. And this indicates the location of this particular mission. It now saves all that random flying around we used to have to do, going in and out all the different types of points of interest. We can now go directly to the point of interest that we want. So when we go down to the planetary surface and approach this particular zone, you'll notice that something a little bit strange happens. The location marker will update itself. This is only a rough location of the area that you need to go to. As you get closer, it will update and move around a bit, and it will do this a number of times until eventually it zeroes in on the exact location. So it can evolve a little bit of flying around, a little bit of to and fro-ing and back and forth in until finally you get to exactly where you need to get to. So here all it's doing is just moving a little bit forward until finally it jumps off quite a bit into the distance. But eventually, with a little bit of patience, it gets us to exactly the right location. Now for me personally, this is how I wanted these missions to work all along. I wanted a point of interest or an area I could fly to straight from space down to the planetary surface and know exactly where I was heading before I even got there. Of course, all the random points of interest are still in the game. You can still fly over the planetary surfaces or just drive around and still bump into all the points of interest, the ones that appear as little circles on your radar. They haven't been taken out of the game, they're just no longer needed to complete missions. What this also does is shorten the amount of time it takes to complete a mission, because for example on this mission I need to locate 8 occupied crow pods, and generally speaking previously you'd only find 1 or maybe 2 of them in each point of interest. So what you'd need to do was fly around over the planetary surface for quite a long time and keep landing at various different locations until you reach the accumulated total that you needed to complete the mission. But as you'll see here, when I get into the zone itself, you'll notice that for the most part they contain nearly all the occupied crow pods that we need. Now sometimes these zones are protected by sentries still, but on other occasions they're not, and on this occasion this one didn't have any form of defence at all, so I could just drive straight in there and pick up all the occupied crow pods. I think there was about 7 here. But I needed 8 to complete the mission, and at this point I'd just assumed that all 8 would be in this one location. This was one of the few times that I found myself wanting an SRV with a larger cargo hold. The Scarab can only hold 2 units of cargo, so it actually meant quite a lot of back and forthing until finally I'd cleared the area. You can see all my tyre tracks there from all of my running about. Now someone did ask Sandra Samarco in the Frontier livestream yesterday whether or not we're going to get some more SRVs in the game, and he actually didn't really want to answer it. It was clear that he wanted to say yes, but that he wasn't able to do so. But he did say that if Frontier ever did do some more SRVs, they would be certain to put a lot of time and effort in to make sure that their driving models felt sufficiently different to each other. And I think both he and Michael Brooks have also said that when additional SRVs do come into the game, they want to be sure that they've got the gameplay there to support it. Now, one new thing down here on the planets is the use of ships. This is the Federal Security ship you can see. Just come in to scan me and see what I'm up to. Fortunately, I've got nothing illegal in my cargo hold on this occasion, but on some occasions these points of interest do indeed contain illegal cargo, and it's quite possible to pick up a bounty on your head by destroying the wrong type of SRV. Now, it's not only security forces that come out this way, you do find the odd pirate as well coming out here, just to try their luck in order to see what you've got, and combat over the surface of planets is quite interesting indeed, to say the least. So now was the time to head off to the second mission I've got. This time to pick up some structural regulators, 8 of them as you can see there. And again, it's the same principle. As you drop into the system, you can either do a discovery scan or drop off at the nav beacon and just do a local scan on that, and that will update you with the mission's location. Unfortunately for me, this particular mission was on the dark side of the planet, and for whatever reason there's no ambient light here, meaning that everything looks very dark indeed. Now, I was wondering at this point whether or not that this particular mission would be able to be completed, because when I was picking up the occupied cryopods, I only found 7 of them in that zone and actually needed 8. I also found out that you can't just use any old occupied cryopod that is laying around. You need specific mission objective ones, and they can only be found in the mission objective locations. So I was one short for now, and I'm therefore unable to complete that particular mission. But first, I was going to need to defeat these sentries, and unfortunately for me, since I'd lost my previous computer and have now got this new one up and running, I still didn't have all my keybinds in place, and I wasn't able to get into the turrets and easily control the SRV from there. So I was reduced to trying to shoot these sentries from inside the vehicle, and I made a bit of a bodge job of it, to say the least. You can see there my hull dropping quite fast. And, well, if I was going to make it out here, I knew that I would certainly need to be healing up very quickly. So, a very poor display of my combat prowess here in the SRV. Hull integrity at 50%. Frontier had said that they had indeed buffed these sentries, and, well, that does certainly seem to be the case. They're quite a bit more tougher than they used to be. Now, if you do park your SRV back in your ship, it will slowly repair itself anyway, but I didn't want to take any chances, so used one of the repair synthesis here. As you can see, there's all manner of cargo laying around here. Not all of them are exactly what I need, there's all sorts of other things, and there's also bits of material laying around. Some of them are more on the rare side, so it's certainly worth having a good look around, because some of those items you're going to need for the engineer's recipes if you're inclined to go and get some of those modules or weapons. Being down on a planet that's as dark as this one is one of the few situations where your ship lights and your SRV lights come in very handy. It took a fair bit of time to pick up all those bits of cargo that I needed, and yet again I was 1 unit short. You can see there that before I boarded the ship here in my SRV, it was actually getting quite late, so I come back to the game here in the morning, and rather than look at the missions again and trying to work out what was going on, I decided to do a bit of ice mining. Now, with this new update, a bunch of new commodities have been introduced with the ice mining. Some of them are very valuable indeed, and others are extremely common and therefore hold very little value. Water is one of these that come to mind. Apparently, there's more or less an endless supply of water in space. Now, of course, you can also get missions for ice mining to collect certain commodities, just like you can with regular mining, and in addition to the value of selling the commodities that you actually mine, you'll also get a nice fat bonus for completing the mission itself. You don't need any additional equipment for ice mining, so as long as your ship is all set up for mining, then you're good to go in these ice rings. Now, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to find down here in these ice rings. I suspected that there was going to be a lot of low value commodities, but I was also hoping to find 1 or 2 high value ones. Again, it would also probably depend on the quality of the ring, just like it does with regular mining. Also, keep in mind that you can find materials in these ice rings now, materials that you need for the engineers. And in fact, those materials can be found just about anywhere, and that really is quite an interesting take on how to do crafting. You can always go out and try and grind for these type of resources, but the thing is, they're found in every single activity you do within the game. So one way or another, you're going to come across those materials anyway. So if you just play the game, eventually you're going to end up with a whole chunk of materials, and these are usable, like I say, for the engineers. But it's still very much up in the air as to whether or not you feel the modifications are worth your time or not. And we still won't know until the patch hits the live servers just how long it's going to take to collect everything needed to craft a particular module. So when I finally left the ice ring, it suddenly struck me that whilst I was still short on components needed to hand in this mission, I could perhaps head back to the same system and see if the point of interest spawned again. And it did indeed, with a whole bunch of more structural regulators here, meaning that I could indeed complete the mission. But this time it was protected by sentries again, and being so dark, it just made things that little bit more difficult for me. And of course, I still hadn't spent the time necessary to rebind the controls for my SRV's turret. Unable to get in my turret and simultaneously control my SRV, I therefore couldn't look backwards and look at the sentries that were pursuing me, so I had to use the contacts panel in order to select the target and then turned around to try and make my own attack. But I was on some type of incline here, or the point of interest was located in a crater, and you can see the sentries making use of the terrain there as they keep ducking behind it to avoid my fire. For a while I considered waiting them out and simply sniping them as they stuck their head above the surface. But I was either unaware of the location of a particular sentry because I kept getting shot at here, or else these sentries were capable of firing through the surface of the planet. So, knowing that I actually had all the cargo I needed for this particular mission, I decided to make a break for it and head for my ship and simply fly out of here. This wasn't so much about an attempt of survival. You can see both my shield and hull are quite high. I just wanted it over and done with. As I approached my ship there, sitting on top of this hill, I'd realised that I was about to miss out on quite a nice screenshot opportunity. But going into the external cam whilst under attack like this is not the most wisest of choices. As I get underneath my ship here, you can see how everything starts highlighting in green, quite a nice lighting effect actually. And of course my ship now starts coming under attack, but of course these little sentries can't do anything other than just tiggle it. If on the other hand there'd been Goliath skimmers though, they would be more than capable of destroying this ship. And there we go, mission objective complete. So if you're out here in one of these missions and these points of interest and you find you don't have enough particular items that they're asking you to collect, don't just go off to another random point of interest because you won't be able to use whatever it is you collect there. But if you do return back to the system again and return back to the planet, you'll find that your mission area does respawn, allowing you to collect everything that you need. So it was time to head back to LHS 3447 and prepare for the rather long trek across the system to Darlton Gateway where I'd collected the mission. But as you can see there, I've got a mission update. Wondering what that could possibly be about, I checked the mission messages and found that the mission giver wanted me to take the items to a different station altogether. Quite fortunate really, because this one was much closer. I really do feel that messages like this add a nice little touch to the game. They make things feel a bit more dynamic and a bit more alive. Handing in the mission was very simple, and once again we get to have a look at the new mission summary screen. This gives us a lot more information, a lot more detailed information on just what effects the mission or the completion of the mission actually has overall for this particular faction. You can see also that I've returned to my blue UI colours. Frontier have made a nice little update allowing us to use these colours with the portraits now. So if you do want to change your UI colours, you can do so now, safe in the knowledge that it won't actually affect the portraits of the mission givers. In another station in this system, Blueford Orbital, which I believe is the new station here, I went over here to check how much I could get for the commodities I'd found in the ice mining. So as we knew, the water is very cheap. I didn't know though how much I'd get for the other commodities. But it turns out that methanol monohydrate is not worth a whole lot. What you really want is low temperature diamonds at 57,000 credits per unit. They would make for a rather nice haul. There are a number of other mission types I want to go and have a look at, and I'll be heading out for them very shortly and making a video on that lot. The engineers and patch 1.6 are going to be hitting the live servers on the 26th of May, so very soon now, and Xbox One players are going to be having access to Horizons and all these updates from the 3rd of June. For PC players, Horizons has now dropped in price to just £20, so probably worth a look at if you haven't got access to it just yet. Anyway, I'm off and be back very soon. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. We're having a look at the engineers patch again. Today I want to have a look at the planetary surfaces. Now I have had a look at these in the previous videos, or at least a little bit of a look, but this time I want to have a much closer look. Now I want to have a look down here because, as you're probably aware, the planetary surfaces have had some graphical updates in this patch.